Post-service life. So, how was the transition back into civilian life after your time
My
serving?
time served. Well, first of all, I got kicked out of the military. So I got kicked out of the military for some minor disciplinary infraction that had nothing to do with me being gay. But myself, I, I was I was kicked out of the military because I was underage drinking, and I drove a car when I shouldn't have, and they gave me the Article 15 DWI base, and then they just kicked me out. That was like, and it was a stupid thing for me to do. It was stupid, but you're young, you do dumb shit, we were all having fun. Everybody was having fun. It's just that we got in trouble, and I got into the most of the trouble, because I got kicked out. But from there, the transition into society was even more difficult. Because here you're in the military, right? You're in the military. You know what it is in the military. You know what the rules are. They said, know this, know that. You're not doing this, you're not doing that. If we catch you, we'll do this. If we catch you, we'll do that. You can be brought up with this. So you knew, what you couldn't do. Out here, wasn't so cut and dry. You had to use even more discretion than you did in the military. Because in the military, you had to use discretion. You had to use discretion on who was or who wasn't. But the thing about it was, you knew the rules. Here, you have to use more discretion, but the rules aren't so cut and dry out here. So you really got to be careful, because you don't know who you're walking up on trying to. So the transition wasn't easy at all, because for one, you get out, you have structure in the military. You don't have that structure out here. So you've got to reacclimate yourself to that. When you're gay and you're in the military, you're alone. So when you're gay and out of the military, you're even more alone. I went back to that heteronormative behavior again, to try and fight once again, because I'm in a different culture now, or subculture. So that heteronormative behavior came back, because now I'm like, well, I'm inside. Maybe I can try to make this work and not be gay. All this time knowing that I was. So again, I went back, I had girlfriends, stuff. And then I messed around, and once my grandmother passed away, I got my own apartment. I was working at the VA, which I have to thank my parents for that. They allowed me to come, they gave me somewhere to stay, they allowed me to get on my feet, to get some job training somewhere. I went to the EEOC and got, my correspondence training together, and, pulled the pieces of my life together and ended up getting a job. So I moved to Rensselaer. Had 2 girlfriends there, but the second girlfriend, I actually moved out from Rensselaer and moved in with her in Cohoes. Now again, see, knowing that I'm gay, I knew I was. I knew there was something but in trying to fight this so much, I went on ahead and said, well, and she liked me, and I liked her too, but I knew there was some shit with me. And mind you, I wasn't saying nothing to her about that. That's just something that you really, for black, I don't know about, white people, but for black men who are, and I'm gonna tell you, black men who are with black women, because I was a black man with a black woman, when you're a black man with a black woman, the one thing that you cannot, that's really hard, is to tell your black woman you're gay. Because now your black woman has to deal with that. She's got to deal with that, you know. And it's hard. It's hard, especially us as our own culture. So it's hard. So I didn't say anything. I almost got married. Almost to her. But I wasn't ready. We were both going to school full time, working full time. Didn't get married. I ended up moving on my own, getting my own place, and once that happened, at about age 29 is when I started dating men, when I first started dating men as a civilian.
Actually, the military has a program. It's called from steel gray to corporate blue. So it's a program that gets people from their military routine into a more corporate setting. So that was very easy for me. But I always, ever since I was a kid, down in Miami with my parents, I had restaurant experience. So when I got out of the military, I immediately went right back into that. So for me, it was an easy transition, and even after active duty, during active duty, I still did like weekends. I did weekends at a restaurant. And then when I got out of active duty, I did full-time at a restaurant. Even during my reserve duty after that, I continued to work in a restaurant. So the transition for me was simple. I'm very adaptable. I'm very chameleon-like, if you will. And I was able to, go from one to the other without much heartache or anything like that. Actually, I was able to abandon a lot of that really easy because a lot of that just didn't resonate with me. There are things that I did because I had to do them, like waking up at 6 a.m. That's not who I am. I'm more of a night owl than I am an early bird. So, getting out of that, I was like, done with that part of it, and I was happy about it. There is a certain level of organization that I was able to maintain from my military career. So in the Navy, I was a yeoman, basically a ship secretary. So my job was to type up awards, do personnel evaluations and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that I was able to retain and use in my professional life as a civilian. Because even in the restaurant, whether I was a server or bartender, I was always chosen to be somebody who did training for new people because I had the skills and I had the organization to get it done. Also, the leadership portion of it. So there's the being able to sit with somebody and talk about what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and how do we turn those weaknesses into strengths, and so on and so forth. So that has proved invaluable to me in my civilian career. I mean, even now that I've moved to Vegas, working at one of the hotels here, we went through training and I created all of my notes, and like everybody saw me working on my iPad in the classroom, taking down these notes, and they were like, yo, you got to send that to me, because that is so particularly organized that it's going to be, and it has been, like everybody's like, these are invaluable. So those are the things that I was able to take with me and that have, and that still flourish afterwards.
It's a blow to more than 2,000 transgender military personnel like Lieutenant Colonel Bree Fram, an Air Force rocket scientist who came out when President Obama dropped the ban on transgender service, a ban the Supreme Court today allowed President Trump to bring back.
It's a really difficult message to face when you've been singled out as someone who's not wanted for something that has nothing to do with your ability to serve this country.
President Trump tweeted in 2017 that he wanted to ban transgender service, but in response to lawsuits, lower courts blocked enforcement of his ban, so the Trump administration appealed, and today by a 5-4 vote, the Supreme Court allowed the government to go ahead with the ban while the lower courts consider whether it's unconstitutional discrimination. Out of 1.3 million active duty service members, roughly 2,400 are transgender. Now, under the Trump policy, most of them cannot remain unless they serve in their biological sex and agree not to seek gender reassignment surgery. It'll take a year or so for this case to come back here on appeal, and when it does, based on today's action, the Trump administration will likely win.
What is your thought on the change of now you can be open and out as a person who is queer, someone you can actually, show affection to your partner doesn't, if they find out you're gay, your partner or your spouse does not lose the benefits and all that else. So when you look at that, how does that make you feel? What is your take on it?
Look, you know what? I can only show, praise for how far we've come, right? And it's one of the things that I think a lot of people should understand is that wherever you are now, like, everybody thinks, oh, this sucks right now, right? But they don't know what the struggle was before, So it's like, for me to see that now people are openly accepted and they're able to live their lives and have their careers without worry of being ostracized. It makes me very happy. There is that little part of me that says, fuck, man, I didn't get to have any of that. I didn't get to benefit from any of that. But knowing that I was part of that struggle gives me a greater appreciation for knowing that it is now something that's available to the future.
Yeah, the don't ask, don't tell. Something had to be done, but that didn't really set right with me, because don't ask, don't tell means you still don't give a fuck about me. You still don't give a fuck about what my issues are while I'm serving in your goddamn military. Really? Yeah, so I was glad that that shit was gone, and that at least LGBTQ could, they weren't going through so much persecution and being thrown out and this and that from their, from doing what they felt they wanted to do. Because you can't, how do you tell a gay person that they can't serve in the military because they're gay? It makes no sense. It just, listen, that motherfucking bullet, excuse my language, but that damn bullet don't give a shit whether you gay, straight, man, woman. It's gonna shoot your ass either way. So, and if your ass is in the foxhole with a gay man, your leg is blown the fuck off, you gonna look to that motherfucker to stop you from bleeding the fuck out, whether he gay, straight, or whatever the fuck he is. So, yeah. Got work to do. They got work to do. That's all I can say about it. They got work to do. I'm glad that eyes are starting to look at it a little bit, but they need to look at it more. They need to look at it a lot more. Yeah.
We say like women who are who dress more masculine or are more masculine, I feel like their experience is different. I'm more feminine, so my and bisexual, so my experience is different versus a gay male. His experience is different, and so altogether they've been trying their best to be more accepting of what is now becoming the social norm for us. and integrating us into their culture and their kind of like adjusting. They're celebrating Pride Month with us, you know, giving us those accolades and telling our stories more, giving light to the men and women who serve who are LGBTQ. So it's definitely a 360 in that regard. Of course, we still have a long ways to go. But they are definitely making strides too. And now that the men and women who are LGBTQ are able to be more open about it, it makes it even easier to speak on those things. And like I said, it's not perfect because for me, like from the outside looking in, for males, especially because males who are in a more infantry type of unit, their experience is a bit different because a lot of those men who they work with have very fixed mindsets about things, and they're not very up to date and willing to adapt their mind just yet. And then there's still older men who are still around from that time, that are still trying to be more receptive to it. And so I feel like that makes the experience for men a little bit different because they're constantly being looked at as, oh, are you going to hit on me? Like they don't really have like that understanding that, oh, because a man is gay doesn't mean he wants every single one of you guys in here. And it's like, yeah, like really, honestly, it's not like that. And having to educate them on like this is what it is like for them, or even on the flip side for a transgender male or woman, like having to explain to them, you know, what that is like for them, but it's being more receptive now. But there are still like those select few that to them it's just like they may never wrap their mind around it, but we're slowly cycling them out, and now it's more and more of us coming in and really shaping the narrative in a positive light and bringing more education and understanding to that.
That sounds good. I mean, you know, I've only ever heard of the aspect from those who once served, and so I'm glad I was able to get you on to be able to tell of how it is now. One question I do have to ask you is, are there any current policies in place today for any discrimination amongst LGBTQ individuals who are currently in active duty?
Yes, there is. That is in our EO and policy about, you know, just anything from race to sexuality, you know, even, you know, your religion. It's not something that's tolerated. It's a no toleration thing for those topics. So yes, there are policies in place, and they are supposed to be reprimanded if found, you know, that is something that's been going on. On the flip side, you know, there's also the fact that not all the times people enforce these policies and like they're supposed to, but it is there and it is in place.
That's good to know. When it comes to your family, how is the experience, you know, with you being in active duty? How is that, you know, with your wife and your son?
I feel like that dynamic is how it is for every family. Like, it's still hard because they have to deal with me being away for different trainings at different time periods for extended periods of time. So I feel like in that aspect, it's not much different than just, you know, to a hetero relationship or family. it in that regards the same. They all miss the same. They all love you the same. So having to having to deal with a family member being away is always hard. The other part to that is that that recognizing the family dynamic on the part of the military, they do, but unless you're married, which I know that you said, like to that, unless you are married on paper, they kind of give you a hard time about recognizing the relationship. So that's kind of been my experience with that.
For someone who's LGBTQ and they're either thinking about enrolling or enlisting or already enlisted, you know, in this predicament, what are some encouraging words you would give them?
You continue to be you. Continue to be your authentic self, because now they can't just throw you out for being gay. So you be your authentic self. You meet someone who loves you in the military, you hold that person. You stay with that person. You and that person build together. Don't let them crackpot asses sit up there and try to persecute you for who you want to love. You guys love each other? Do it. Do it. Stay on that. Stay on that. Because the only way that we can really overturn that is to fight against it. And keep in the fight. Stay in the fight. Stay in it is all I can say. Just stay in the fight.
I think part of the reason that I was so successful as an LGBTQ person in the military at the time was because as gay people, we're, what's the word that I'm looking for? We're like underdogs, right? And we're always doing more than what's necessary to make sure that we stand out and that we shine. And if anything that I would say to people who are currently still in is to continue to be that, you know, because you paved the way. I paved the way when I was in, and they're going to continue to pave the way for the people who are coming after them. So just continue to shine, be bright, you know, put your best face forward, you know, purse first, throw it out there, and just be the light that you want, that you would have wanted for yourself in that situation. Because military life's not easy. It's not easy, but we choose it. We choose it, and there's a certain amount of it that we say, all right, I'm going to take it, I'm going to run with it, because it's a commitment. It's only a 4-year commitment, and you can choose to do more, but it's a 4-year commitment. And if you're going to do it, go all out. Show them everything that you got and make yourself invaluable to them. Because, you know, I was put out, but I was put out for other reasons that had nothing to do with my sexuality or my performance. But yeah, if you make yourself invaluable, they're not going to easily let you go.
I love can't remember if it's a quote or if it's just something that you say, but for those who are currently serving or want to serve but are discouraged because they feel like there's a lack of representation, I always say just be the change. And that's uncomfortable, and that requires a level of, you know, putting yourself out there and sometimes being put into uncomfortable positions. But in order for us to see that change, we have to be that change. We have to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations. We have to be willing to put people, because sometimes that means, you know, there's a rank structure in the military. And so sometimes that means you're speaking to somebody who's a higher rank above you, who looks down at you because you might be lower enlisted. You might be a lower enlisted, but that shouldn't. You have a voice, and in order for us to see change, we have to be the change. So don't let anybody discourage you from being who you are and showing up as such, because they will. They will try to discourage you. They will try to shut you up, but don't let them. And that's how I feel.